Lady Gaga is one of the most enigmatic and influential artists in pop music. With a meteoric rise in the late 2000s, she conquered the world with her powerful voice, bold performances, and a visual style that often flirts with the bizarre. But behind the eccentric image and overwhelming fame, there is something that few people notice. A pattern of statements, symbols, and strange events that suggest her career may not have been built solely on talent and hard work. At different times, the singer has let slip unsettling remarks about her journey in the industry, mentioning the weight of success and the feeling of being trapped in something bigger than herself. Moreover, there are stories surrounding her past that raise doubts about the dark backstage of fame. The question that few ask, but that might explain everything, is, did Lady Gaga really reach the top on her own merit, or is there something sinister behind her trajectory? Welcome to another night where mysteries never sleep. I am Midnight, and this is 7 Nights. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for your help. Like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it makes a huge difference in helping YouTube recommend the videos to more people and allowing me to continue bringing this content to you. I'm counting on you. Let's get into the video. Lady Gaga has made numerous statements throughout her career, but some of them seem to hide a much deeper meaning than most realize. In an interview with Z100 Radio, she said something at the very least intriguing. "I sold my soul for this success." The host laughed, thinking it was a joke, but Gaga didn't. What did she mean by that? Was it just a metaphor for the effort she put into her career, or a disguised confession? That wasn't the only time Gaga suggested that something bigger controls her. In a documentary about her tour, she revealed that she constantly feels a presence in her room at night. "I pray all the time because I'm afraid of what might happen to me while I sleep." But afraid of what, exactly? Stalkers and paparazzi, like any celebrity? Or something that cannot be seen, but is always there? And this fear doesn't seem unfounded. Because if there's one thing that has never been lacking in Lady Gaga's trajectory, it's symbols and hidden references. Since the beginning of her career, her music videos and performances have been filled with enigmatic images. The all-seeing eye, symbols reminiscent of secret orders, and even reenactments of mysterious rituals. Could all this be just an eccentric aesthetic, or a subtle way of showing who is really in control of her career? What makes this story even stranger is how quickly everything happened. Think about it. In 2006, Stefani Germanotta was just an unknown singer, performing in small bars in New York. 2 years later, under the name Lady Gaga, she was one of the biggest pop stars in the world. Of course, talent and hard work are important, but the music industry doesn't work that way for everyone. How many artists spend their entire lives trying and never make it? What made Gaga different? Perhaps the answer lies in her own words. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Gaga confessed, "Sometimes it feels like there are other forces guiding all of this. A way of talking about the weight of fame, or a sign that she really has no control over her own career." And she's not the only one who feels this way. Kanye West, Britney Spears, and even Michael Jackson have said they felt controlled by something greater. Michael, shortly before he died, claimed that invisible forces wanted to silence him. Could Lady Gaga be experiencing the same thing? Theories about the music industry and its blood contracts are not new. Many believe that some stars sign agreements that guarantee fame and success, but at an extremely high price. And if someone tries to leave, well, just look at the number of artists who face problems right after suggesting that something isn't right behind the scenes. Scandals, forced hospitalizations, health crises. Could all of this really be just a coincidence? Speaking of health, did you know that Lady Gaga had to cancel part of her tour in 2014 due to a mysterious hip injury? At the time, doctors couldn't fully explain what was happening. For most people, this is just a common issue. But what if it's not? What if it was a form of punishment for something she tried to do behind the scenes? And it doesn't stop there. In an old and little-known interview, Gaga mentioned that some meetings at the beginning of her career were not exactly about music, but about other kinds of agreements. She never explained what that meant, but did she really need to? What we do know is that her obsession with themes like mind control and submission doesn't seem to be a coincidence. Her music videos frequently depict characters who lose their identity, are manipulated, or undergo transformation processes. The video for Marry the Night is a perfect example. In it, Gaga appears in a psychiatric hospital being rebuilt to become something greater. For some, this is just art. For others, a symbolic portrayal of what really happened to her. Now stop and think. How many stars who tried to expose the industry's secrets had their fates drastically altered? Kanye West was ridiculed and forcibly hospitalized. Britney Spears spent years under a conservatorship that prevented her from controlling her own life. And Lady Gaga? If she wanted to speak out, would they be able to silence her too? It could all be paranoia. It could all be coincidence. But when we put all these pieces together, something seems off. What if Lady Gaga has been trying to tell us something for years, but no one has been listening? Before Lady Gaga became a global phenomenon, there was another rising star that few people know about, Lina Morgana. A young, talented singer, full of energy and with a unique style. But her story was tragically cut short, and since then, many believe that her death hides dark secrets, secrets that may be directly linked to Gaga's meteoric success. Lina and Stefani Germanotta, before adopting the stage name Lady Gaga, worked together at the beginning of their careers. Both were connected to the same music producer, Rob Fusari, and spent hours composing, recording, and shaping their styles. Lina was vibrant, with an eccentric look and a striking stage presence. Her vocal tone, her expressions, and even her outfits had something that, years later, the world would see in Gaga. But while one of them became one of the biggest pop music artists, the other met a fatal fate. In 2008, at just 19 years old, Lina Morgana fell from the 10th floor of a building in Staten Island. The official version says she committed suicide, but the circumstances of her death have never been fully clarified. What led a promising young woman, full of dreams and talent, to take her own life? And why does no one talk about it? The strangest part is that right after Lina's death, Lady Gaga exploded onto the world stage. Within months, her appearance changed drastically, her musical style solidified, and her image gained elements that had once been trademarks of Lina. To this day, there are videos comparing the two, and the similarities are eerie. Could this be mere coincidence, or did Gaga take on something that belonged to the late young singer? Lina's mother, Lina Morgana, believes that her daughter was unfairly forgotten and has given interviews claiming that Gaga incorporated the young singer's style. Lina even publicly requested that Lina's music rights be recognized, but nothing ever happened. If Lina and Gaga really worked together and had so many songs in common, why was there never an official release of these tracks? What were they trying to hide? Another disturbing detail is that Gaga rarely mentions Lina Morgana. In all interviews about the beginning of her career, the singer talks about her struggles, her dedication, and her hard work, but never about the partnership she had with Lina. How is it possible that someone who was so present during that period simply vanished from the narrative? And there's something even stranger. In various performances, Gaga has incorporated images and themes that allude to a trapped soul, transformation rituals, and even the tragic death of someone close to her. Are these just artistic elements, or a disguised tribute to something she cannot openly talk about? Theories suggest that in the music industry, there are hidden pacts where certain sacrifices are necessary to guarantee absolute success. This type of story has circulated before, involving names like Kanye West, Jennifer Hudson, and even Jay-Z. But could this be the case with Lady Gaga? Was Lina Morgana a piece in this larger game? There is no concrete evidence that her death was anything other than suicide, but the coincidences, the similarities, and Gaga's silence on the subject raise questions that no one seems to want to answer. If Lina were alive, would Gaga have become who she is today? Or rather, is Gaga in some way what remains of Lina Morgana? If there's one thing Lady Gaga does well, it's creating images that stick in the audience's mind. But is it all just an aesthetic choice, or is there something much deeper in these visual messages? Because when we look closely, we notice a disturbing pattern. A pattern that appears not only in her music videos, but also in many other artists who have reached the top of the industry. The most prominent symbol in her career is the all-seeing eye, often associated with Freemasonry and occult orders. Throughout almost every phase of her trajectory, Gaga appears covering one of her eyes with her hand, a gesture repeated by countless other pop artists. Many say it's just a stylish pose, but then, why does it appear so consistently and in such specific contexts? And it doesn't stop there. Anyone who has watched her most iconic performances must have noticed the presence of elements reminiscent of rituals. At the 2009 VMAs, for example, Gaga staged her own death on stage, surrounded by masked dancers. For most people, it was just a theatrical show. But for those familiar with hidden symbolism, it looked like a sacrifice ritual disguised as entertainment. And then we have Bad Romance, one of the most watched music videos of her career. While many see it as a bold and conceptual video, others interpret it as the representation of a dark initiation. Gaga appears being sold to mysterious figures, subjected to experiments, and in the end, she reemerges transformed. Doesn't that sound familiar? But perhaps the most revealing video of all is Marry the Night. The story begins with Gaga in a psychiatric hospital, being led by uniformed nurses. She seems disoriented, lost. Gradually, we see her transformation happening, not just physically, but mentally, as if she were being reprogrammed. Now think, why would an artist choose to tell this story in such a specific way? If it was just about her journey in the music industry, why use the setting of a psychiatric hospitalization and a psychological breakdown? Could Gaga be trying to tell us, in a coded way, something that happened behind the scenes of her own life? And it's not just the imagery. Her lyrics also raise suspicions. In Paparazzi, she sings about obsessive love, but many believe the song isn't about romance at all. It's about a relationship of control between an artist and the industry's power players. In Dance in the Dark, she mentions Marilyn Monroe and other women who curiously met tragic ends. Coincidence or a hidden message? Gaga's behavior itself has changed over the years. Early in her career, she spoke freely, seemed more accessible. But as her fame grew, she became more enigmatic, her interviews more calculated. At times, she even appeared visibly uncomfortable when answering certain questions. What happened to cause such a drastic shift? Many believe that once stars reach a certain level of influence, they must follow certain rules to stay at the top. And these rules are not always visible to the public. This could explain why so many artists suddenly begin adopting the same symbols, the same gestures, and even the same narrative in their music videos. The big question is, did Lady Gaga choose this aesthetic, or was she forced to adopt it as a sign of loyalty? If she wanted to leave, would she even have that option? Because if this theory is true, then the messages have always been there. Most people just never noticed. Fame comes at a price, and those who reach the top of the music industry know that this price can be much higher than anyone imagines. Talent, charisma, and hard work are not enough. There are invisible forces that decide who rises and who falls. And some say that, to stay at the top, certain artists must sign contracts that go far beyond simple business agreements. Michael Jackson, shortly before his death, made a strange warning. "They don't care about me. They want to silence me." Kanye West, in one of his public outbursts, shouted to an audience that signing that contract was the worst decision of his life. Britney Spears spent years living like a prisoner, unable to control her own career. Are these just coincidences, or a repeating pattern that no one wants to acknowledge? Lady Gaga has mentioned that her journey was not as simple as it seems. In old interviews, she said she attended meetings that were not exactly about music. What kind of meetings could these have been? And why has she never gone into detail about what was discussed? The idea of blood contracts in the industry didn't emerge out of nowhere. For decades, artists have spoken about feeling trapped, manipulated, and forced to follow directions they didn't choose. But when they try to leave, something always happens. Some suffer mental breakdowns. Others get caught up in scandals, and some simply disappear. Lady Gaga's own music videos seem to reflect this sense of imprisonment. In Paparazzi, she is shown as a controlled artist, unable to escape her fame. Alejandro features symbols reminiscent of submission rituals. In 9/11, she appears in a trance-like state, as if under the influence of an external command. Are these just creative choices or hidden messages? But nothing is stranger than what happened to her in 2016. After years at the peak of her career, Gaga was forced to step away from the stage due to a mysterious condition. She claimed to suffer from chronic pain and made an enigmatic statement. "Sometimes, I feel like something is punishing me. Who, or what, would be imposing this punishment?" Behind the scenes, there are rumors that contracts like these cannot simply be broken. When an artist tries to leave, they face problems ranging from blacklisting by their own record label to inexplicable personal crises. Chester Bennington, lead singer of Linkin Park, and Avicii, two musicians who suggested they knew dark secrets about the industry, died tragically shortly after mentioning that they were tired of the system. In the documentary Gaga, 5'2", there is a moment where the visibly shaken singer says, "I am just a piece of meat. They just want a piece of me." But who are they? Managers? Record labels? Or something much bigger? If there is something Gaga cannot say, perhaps she is trying to show it. But the real question is, if she truly signed something she cannot break, will she ever be able to free herself? Some truths cannot be spoken outright. But what if they could be shown? If an artist wanted to reveal something to the world that they couldn't openly discuss, how would they do it? Some messages may be right in front of us, hidden in seemingly insignificant details that, when connected, form a chilling pattern. Lady Gaga has always known how to use her art to convey messages, but there are moments when her words and expressions say more than any elaborate music video ever could. During interviews, her behavior has already raised suspicions. In 2011, when asked about her routine, she responded, "I am no longer the owner of myself." The interviewer laughed, thinking it was a joke, but her expression remained serious. What does this really mean? Was she simply referring to the pressure of fame, or was she subtly revealing that her freedom was no longer her own? Another strange moment occurred in 2016, when Gaga appeared publicly with a completely different look. More subdued, without the extravagant glow that always defined her, she seemed tired. During a press conference, someone asked how she felt about the many changes in her career. She sighed and said something that went unnoticed by many. "We don't always choose the paths we follow." And then we have her songs. 911, for example, describes an experience of dissociation, where Gaga herself sings about not having control over her mind. In Dance in the Dark, she mentions the names of famous women who met tragic ends, such as Marilyn Monroe and Sylvia Plath. In Speechless, one of the verses says, "I'll never talk, so you can stop me?" Could this be just a metaphor for abusive relationships, or a disguised confession? Her music videos also contain details that seem to be more than mere coincidences. In Marry the Night, the opening scene shows Gaga being taken to a psychiatric hospital, where nurses prepare her for something she describes as reprogramming. To an average viewer, this might seem like just an artistic narrative. But for those who study patterns in the industry, this scene resembles accounts of artists who have allegedly undergone elite mind control programs. In the documentary Gaga, 5'2", one moment caught the attention of those who follow these theories. In one scene, Gaga breaks down crying while describing her routine. "Everyone wants a piece of me, but when it's all over, who will be left?" This phrase might seem like a simple emotional outburst, but when placed alongside all the other clues, it starts to sound like a warning. And then we arrive at one of the most unsettling moments of her career, her appearance at the 2019 Met Gala. Unlike her previous theatrical entrances, this time Gaga seemed different. Her expressions were less controlled, her gestures more automatic. Some body language experts analyzed her posture and suggested that she was trying to suppress something. Was she attempting to communicate something without words? Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe all these phrases, scenes, and isolated moments mean nothing when viewed separately. But when connected, they form a disturbing narrative. A narrative of someone who, over the years, has tried to warn the world about something they cannot say out loud. And the question that remains is, what if no one ever noticed simply because they never looked closely enough? Fame is a labyrinth with no way out. To the public, millionaire artists seem to live at the height of freedom, but the reality may be very different. What happens when a star wants to leave this game? When they try to regain control over their own life? History shows that, for many, this attempt comes at a price, and most of the time it's too high. The pattern is always the same. The moment an artist decides to speak too much or step away from the industry, their life changes drastically. Scandals appear out of nowhere. Psychiatric diagnoses emerge. Unexplained health problems begin to surface. And in some cases, the outcome is even darker. Michael Jackson, shortly before his death, revealed that he was being followed. He said that they were trying to silence him. Whitney Houston, after years of success, began facing strange problems before her sudden death. Avicii and Chester Bennington, two musicians who suggested they knew dark secrets about the industry, met tragic ends. Could this all be just coincidence, or is it a repeating pattern that has been happening for years? Lady Gaga seems to know this game well. In 2013, she slowly began to distance herself from her extravagant persona. She started giving more controlled interviews, changed her appearance, and shifted her narrative. At one event, she said something that went unnoticed by many. The industry can be a very lonely place, even when you're surrounded by thousands of people. In 2016, her health became a concern. She canceled shows, revealed that she was suffering from chronic pain, and had to step away. But what stands out is how she described her condition. "I don't know where this pain comes from, but it feels like I'm being punished." Strange words for someone who was supposedly just dealing with an illness. Another curious moment happened during her performance at the 2017 Super Bowl. At the peak of the show, Gaga stopped, looked directly into the camera, and made a peculiar hand gesture, one that, to many, seemed like a signal. An insignificant detail for the general audience, but for those who study industry patterns, a possible cry for help. Her music videos and songs continued to reflect this sense of imprisonment. In 9/11, she sings about being out of control, as if her mind belonged to someone else. In Marry the Night, she portrays a mental breakdown before undergoing a transformation. In interviews, she avoids certain topics and gives vague responses when asked about her artistic independence. So now the question arises, did Lady Gaga try to leave, only to realize it was impossible? Because if this theory holds any truth, then fame is not just a privilege, but a contract that not everyone can break. The signs have always been there. Words spoken enigmatically, symbols repeatedly appearing, inexplicable behavioral changes. Lady Gaga might just be another artist struggling with the pressures of fame, or she might be trapped in something no one else can see. Something that, from time to time, she tries to show us through her art, her interviews, and even her exhausted body. If this theory is real, then perhaps we are not just watching elaborate performances and music videos. Perhaps we are witnessing in real time the story of someone who tried to escape, only to discover that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. This story is just one piece, and one day, maybe you'll see the whole puzzle. If this made you think, subscribe, like the video. It helps the channel grow. And don't forget to share, because more voices mean more discoveries.